I actually know most of the information from my grandmother, Rose Rabinowitz-Gorel. Always wore that hat. And she told me about her parents, Jacob and Jenny Rabinowitz, who met in Europe. They were Orthodox Jews.
I really only know what my father told me many years ago. My father was raised by his mother, Rose, and I think his grandfather, Jacob, was really kind of a father figure to my father, and they were very close.
Doesn't that look like Uncle Jeffrey?
Yeah.
The most amazing thing is if you look at a picture of Jacob, he looks just like me. As I've aged, because the picture that we have is probably Jacob when he's probably my age, and it's just uncanny how much we look alike.
He had 3 sons and 2 daughters. His oldest was Aaron, Leon, Maurice, and his 2 daughters was my grandmother Rose and her sister Felicia. And when he came as an immigrant, he started a box company on the Lower East Side, and it was called the Spear Box Company.
Jacob Rabinowitz came to America around 1881, and while most of the immigrants arriving at that time were arriving poor or, with very little funds, Jacob Rabinowitz was someone who had already established himself as a businessman in Russia and in Kiev in particular. So he had left his wife and family behind, like many of the immigrants did, came here to get a foothold. He got that foothold selling paper boxes, and then saved the money to bring his family over, and his wife then sold out the business they had in Russia. And with the funds that she brought over, they went into the liquor business and at the same time into real estate.
Later, 2 of my great uncles, Leon and Maurice, rather than use the name Rabinowitz, changed their name to Spear, both of whom became partners of Harry Helmsley, whose company it was known as Helmsley Spear.
Of course, like many of the immigrants who came, they very quickly adapted to America and were interested in its customs. At the dedication of this very synagogue, reporters noted that men and women and children alike were waving flags of the Stars and Stripes. So certainly Americanization, in terms of patriotism, in terms of love of the country, came about relatively quickly. Jacob and his wife Jenny celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in New York, and a Jewish newspaper at the time noted that the anniversary was celebrated on Washington's birthday, and that Jacob Rabinowitz commented, when we were married, and they were married at the age of 19 and they were still in Russia, we knew nothing from George Washington. Jacob Rabinowitz was someone who was successful in business, but then used that money and his experience in business to help get East European Jewish communal societies off the ground. He was one of the founders of HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. He supported an old age home. He supported Talmud Torahs, or Jewish Hebrew schools.
I believe his obituary, if you read it, shows that he participated in a myriad of charities, and not just as a person who gave a donation, but actually participated.
When he died, the Yiddish papers and the New York Times all listed his charitable organizations. For the last 9 years, he has been serving as a judge of the Jewish Conciliation Court of America. As a founder and president of the Hebrew Kindergarten Infants Home, he was instrumental in building its Far Rockaway home. He was president of the Rabbi Yochanan Lodge, and during his term as president, he organized the Loan and Relief Society of Brooklyn, of which he was also president. Jacob Rabinowitz founded HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, but he and his sons not only helped institutions, but they forged relationships with other communal workers, communal activists. One of the most famous of these that came under the support of the Rabinowitz family was Lillian Wald. And Lillian Wald was a nurse who came to the Lower East Side and started a visiting nurses society in which she and other nurses would visit the tenement homes and provide the medical care that was sorely lacking. In the early 1890s, Lillian Wald founded the Henry Street Settlement House and soon had the support not only of German Jewish finance magnates, but these East European Jews too, like Aaron Rabinowitz, the son of Jacob Rabinowitz. As these successful businessmen moved out of the Lower East Side, which they tended to do by the 1890s and early 1900s, they would move to new neighborhoods and found new synagogues, new congregations, because, of course, as Sabbath observant, and Jacob Rabinowitz was Sabbath observant throughout his life, he would need to find a synagogue that he could go to on the Sabbath.
It's kind of like a full circle where my great-grandfather was very religious, and the second generation became less religious and assimilated, and now my children and my family is religious, Shomer Shabbos, back to the mikvah.
I think you can get a pretty good idea of who Jacob Rabinowitz was by looking at the information that we've accumulated. I encourage everyone to do it. I got a big kick out of it, and just seeing his name on a ledger in Ellis Island in a book that has to be 100 years old. It's pretty cool.
Welcome to the museum at Eldridge Street. My name is Bonnie Diamond. I'm the executive director of this beautiful, beautiful facility. I'd like to welcome you also to the Goral Rabinowitz Family History Center.
I wanted to have a place that people like myself could go and possibly hire someone to research their own family history and then preserve it.
At this center, we have the opportunity to learn about our ancestors. We also can provide for you the opportunity to take oral histories of your relatives.
If anyone's interested in a family reunion like we were, there's no better place to do it than at Eldridge Street, because as a family we all felt that we were attached to that community, the Lower East Side. Hopefully my grandchildren will be curious someday and push the button on the computer and see what our family history is all about.